Hi, Sarah Pacaro, and I am a hypnotherapist, a rapid transformational therapist. I specialize in working with people who are looking for an inner way to heal after having been in toxic and unhealthy relationships or narcissistic relationships. Maybe that's personally, perhaps it's within a family dynamic or structure, but they now are moving towards healing, understand this dynamic of narcissism, but don't really understand the internal implications of what happens after having experience being in these types of relationships. So today we're going to talk about the narcissistic mother, and it's linked to CPTSD. CPTSD is different from PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. The C stands for complex. So we're going to talk about that link today. Many people that I end up seeing have mothers who were narcissistic or are narcissistic, and that led to them choosing partners that had the same traits and qualities of their mother. And they realized, oh my gosh, I married my mother. Now I'm left with CPTSD, or maybe you've gone to a doctor and been diagnosed with that. So today we're going to talk about that connection, the link between the narcissistic mother, and CPTSD. So like I said, that stands for complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And it is quite complex. It's an intricate web of so many things, just like the narcissists cast their web, which you get caught in your own web, even if you have gone no contact or cut off contact with a narcissist, even if that narcissist was your mother, not necessarily a partner. When we think about PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, most people, and I did this in the very beginning too, I referred to a condition which was a response to a single event, which was characterized by symptoms such as like flashback to the original trauma. Maybe it was a car accident or an experience of sexual assault or whatever it is. When you hear PTSD in the context, you generally think automatically about veterans or people who experience combat-related trauma. And we associate it with people who've witnessed horrors, like horrible things like accidents or so whatnot. But actually in 1988, Judith Herman or Herman is a professor of clinical psychology at Harvard, coined the term CPTSD, which was required to describe the effects of long-term trauma. So not just a single event, but long-term trauma, an accumulation of trauma. And some of the symptoms between PTSD and CPTSD are very similar, including flashbacks or feeling like that trauma is happening right now in this moment, even though the left logical side of your brain understands that it's not right now, but you're having the experience as if it's happening now in this moment. You're having intrusive thoughts, images, physical sensations. This comes up all the time in the clients that I work with, including sweating or night sweats, when you're having night terrors and you're reliving that experience, nausea, trembling, all of those things, cold, shivering. It's as if it's happening again right now, as if you're reliving it. So people who have CPTSD also often experience emotional regulation difficulties, feelings of emptiness and just utter hopelessness, feelings of hostility, feelings of distrust. They describe it being like just enraged, just seeing red. And they describe that experience with the narcissist. I could tell like they were seeing red as if they weren't even there. They describe feelings of indifference or defectiveness. They feel like inherently at their core that they're broken, that there's something wrong with them. Dissociative symptoms and suicidal feelings. It just, I can't handle this. I don't want to be here anymore. They idolize that. So the causes of CPTSD are rooted in long-term trauma, the accumulation of trauma, not just one event, but the accumulation of many events over time. And although it can be caused by any ongoing trauma, such as domestic abuse or living in a really hostile environment, it's most often associated with trauma that occurred in childhood. And that is what I specialize in having you heal from within from. So the obvious childhood traumas are physical and sexual abuse. And emotional neglect is the one where we spend our time. Yes, those physical experiences leave external scars, but it's those internal scars, like those blind scars, that emotional neglect, which really leaves the most severe, significant impact. Emotional abuse is more difficult to identify. Physical abuse, the signs are more clear. There's cuts, there's bruises, you're going to the doctor for it immediately to receive treatment. But emotional abuse, you don't go to a doctor immediately. You are made to kind of push it down or deal with it or get over it. That can be much, much, much more difficult to identify, and it doesn't show up until later on when you're seeing the impact of this now in your adult life, that you're out of that experience that caused that, but it's still there. It's like a snowball. It just keeps rolling and getting bigger and moving faster and causing more damage in its wake. So the emotional abuse can also be the cause of CPTSD. Emotional abuse is at the heart of children who grow up with a narcissistic parent, specifically a narcissistic mother, because you expect a mother to be loving, caring, nurturing, forgiving, soothing, all these things that when society or when you think of your mom, you want your mother to be that. But a narcissistic mother can do so much emotional abuse and damage. In the case of a narcissistic mother and a child relationship, emotional abuse is disguised, and it's deeply disguised as bonds of love. And you hear about that trauma bonding, love bonding, love bombing. And it's taking it from a whole range of behaviors designed to control the child, designed to keep the child close, keep the child dependent on this push-pull dynamic of this mom, and to have the child on hand to reflect back to the mother what she needs to boast her fragile ego. So it's an experience of the mother always controlling and using that child and taking and giving emotional needs in order to get that met. It's a very sick and twisted dynamic this narcissistic mother will put her child through. One of the most difficult aspects of being the child of a narcissistic mother is that your primary interest to her is your ability to be of use to her. So what type of use you have to her is dependent on the type of narcissist that she is. So we're not going to get deep into that in this video, but there are different types of narcissists. Most of us, when we think or hear the word narcissist, we associate the term narcissism with like this grandiose type, the type who always wants to be the center of attention. And you know it. When they walk in a room, you know it. It's grand, the entrance and all of the look at me kind of behaviors that they exhibit. But narcissists will take all shapes and forms. Their narcissist is not only defined in their terms for needs for attention, but also the need to control the environment and protection of themselves through the use of others. So everyone in their harem or in their world or in their environment is like a puppet, and they're constantly being used and manipulated and controlled. Even their children, they actually use their children more so, control their children more so. So your mother may have used you as someone, if you had a mother who was a narcissist, may have used you as someone to defend her against her husband. And you're thinking, okay, you're caught in this triangulation because chances are, not in all cases, sometimes they're step parents, but chances are it was your dad or your father. And she used you as the child as someone to defend her against her own husband, or as someone to be her best friend. That is not a healthy parent-child dynamic or relationship, is to be best friends. You need to have the parent and child, or as someone to put down and criticize so that she could feel better about herself. You see, the narcissistic mother will criticize and put down their child to feel better about themselves. Whatever particular use she had in mind for you, children are very, very much a part of the narcissistic supply, and children are easy targets because they are so dependent on this parent figure or authority figure to get their needs met. And sometimes it's the basic needs for food, shelter, water, clothing. But we have those basic needs, and we also have emotional needs that need to be met, but they actually are quite destroyed in this dynamic and relationship. So if you were the child of a narcissistic parent or mother, you will likely have experienced extreme ongoing pressure in this process, pressure to take care of her, pressure to sometimes be the parent in this dynamic, in this relationship. In an ideal world, you would have been allowed to grow up simply being a kid. And being a kid, you got to revel in the freedom of self-exploration and self-expression. You were free to get curious and imagine and dream and wonder and express. But in the world of a narcissistic parent or mother, all of that was squashed and diminished. It all became about serving and being controlled and manipulated to serve that parent or that mother. So children of narcissistic mothers don't get the luxury of having a childhood or being a kid. Instead, they are constantly looking over their shoulders to see, have I upset my mother? What did I do? Did I do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing? What kind of mood is she going to be in today? And they learn that the most important thing in the world is to try and please their mother. And in this, they are living in a constant state of fear in case they get it wrong. So quite literally, the amygdala in their brain is constantly firing off. And in this traumatic state, this fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response, and they're constantly in a state of fear in case they get it wrong. Like, what if I get it wrong? And what's going to happen? What is my mother going to do now? Is she going to physically abuse or assault me? Is she, going to take away things? Is she not going to let me do something? Like, it's just that feeling of walking on eggshells, not even eggshells, like that probably feels like it would be nice, like feeling of like walking on knives or blades. And it takes many, many, many years of knowing what it takes to get it right, to please the mother, because it's always as if nothing you do is good enough, that it becomes so complex, like this narcissistic mother set of rules that you are expected to live by, and you feel like you never get it right. Even if you do get it right, the next time you go in, the rules are completely different and changed, and so you're starting all over again in that cycle. So like getting a harsh word or getting a criticism is a denial of one's experiences. Really is getting a harsh word or criticism really as bad as like being slapped for bad behavior? I mean, the answer is yes. And there's no question the verbal venom which a narcissistic mother directs towards her child or her children is extreme. And it is every bit as frightening to that child as getting slapped or physically punished for whatever it was that they did. And along with that fear that becomes embedded in that child is constant confusion. I mean, constant wondering, or I don't get it. Like last time I did this and she was happy and pleased and it was fine and I didn't get punished. And I went and I did the same thing now in this experience, in this situation, and I did get punished. So I don't get it. So it's very unclear. There's constant confusion. Narcissists are highly emotionally fragile, and they create this complex web around themselves in order to control what they do and do not want to come into contact with. And as a child, your emotions may be deemed inherently unacceptable if they pose any kind of threat to that parent or to that mother at all. So let's say, for example, you have your grandmother, but you know that your mother is jealous of your grandmother for whatever reason. You just know that your mother is jealous of her. So instead of being free to express your love to your grandmother, because imagine she treats you wonderfully and she gives you true, genuine love. She doesn't try to critique you or change you. She just loves you. But you know that your mother is jealous of her. So instead of being free to express your love to her, you might find yourself thinking or saying nasty things about your grandmother, maybe even to her, just to please your mother. Or let's imagine that you're a naturally outgoing child. But because of your natural outgoing ability, your ability to connect with anyone and for others to like and love you, your mother quickly becomes jealous when you take that limelight or that spotlight away from her. So simply expressing sadness or fear is met with mockery or with disdain. And she's laughing at you, going, "What are you crying about? Come on. Oh, your life is so hard," right? So not all children of narcissistic mothers will develop CPTSD, but many of the fundamental ingredients are there. So including constant fear, including pressure, that tension in your head and your chest and your neck and your shoulders, that confusion. That's the power of gaslighting and manipulation. Narcissistic mothers are masters of gaslighting. Gaslighting is getting you to question your reality, getting you to question what you know to be true. That didn't happen. Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. I was there. And by the time you reach adulthood, you go through childhood, your teenage years, you reach adulthood, your version of reality, if your mother was a narcissist, may be so disintegrated that you may well buy into the idea that there is something inherently defective in you. Because the reasons that you came up for feeling depressed or feeling anxious about things or feeling hopeless have all been ridiculed and denied by the very person who raised you, by the very person who was supposed to be loving and caring and nurturing and forgiving and compassionate towards you, who's supposed to teach you how to handle those strong emotions and feelings. Because you don't get a manual or how-to book when you're being raised, you get parents. And when one of the parents is a narcissist, the rest of your life is significantly impacted. So for children of narcissistic parents or mothers, there's no let up, there's no reprieve, there's no break. It just simply is the way that you live, and you don't know that it's different or wrong until you grow up and you become an adult and you get into the world, and then you have all these feelings and these experiences, and then you go, wait a minute, maybe you always have that inner gut feeling, but you don't know that it's there to teach you, and you don't know any different. So that constant weariness, that constant worry that you experience day in, day out from having a narcissistic mother or parent for years and years and years on end can be the very root cause of what is going on, like mental health problems, including CPTSD. This feelings of worthlessness, just being subjected to like this feeling defectiveness or disassociation. You don't even know what you feel. You just feel numb to everything, feelings of hopelessness. And they can and do persist long after the original trauma. So know that if you had a narcissistic mother and you're aware of this, and you say, I know my mother was a narcissist, but I've got no contact with her, I have cut her out of my life, I don't talk to her anymore, you're still feeling all of these feelings, the fear, the worry, the disassociation, and feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, that is because your mother planted all of those seeds in your mind when you were growing up, and now those seeds are still being watered, still receiving soil, sunshine, all the things that they need, and they're still growing within you. So when you're ready to break free from that trauma bond, break free from that chain, maybe you have physically broken free from that narcissistic parent or mother, and good for you if you have done that, but you're still feeling the ramifications from it, and you're sick and tired, you're done. That is where rapid transformational therapy and hypnosis makes the most profound, significant difference in your life, in your inner mind. So I would love to talk to you about working together one-on-one to allow you to have the experience of breaking free from that, specifically if you had a narcissistic parent or mother, because the damage done is profound. And just going and talking to someone about what you think it is, you will be quite shocked at how different the feelings and what the experiences is when you actually get to the root of it versus just spending time talking about what you think it is, because there's the difference between your conscious, your logical mind, and your more powerful subconscious inner mind. And when you can do the work there, being that it's 90 to 95% of your mind, that is where you make the most profound, significant difference and changes. So there is a link in the description below to connect and learn more. If you like this video, if you resonated with it or connected with it, please, share, comment, and connect. Thank you guys. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I look forward to connecting again soon.